Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Dan Rossiter. I'm one of the built environment sector leads here at the BSI, and we're going to have a nice lunchtime webinar talking about all things relating to the Information Management Initiative and the IMI framework. But before we get into that exciting presentation, I'll take you through a few bits of housekeeping. First, hopefully you've been to these webinars before. If so, you know exactly what's about to happen. But this is a listen-only webinar. Your microphones and cameras have been disabled for the duration of this event. However, we do want to hear from you, and we do want you to engage. The way you do that is using the questions box that you have. If you look in the top right-hand side of your screen, you should see a little box with a question mark in it. You can use that to submit your questions. We've got a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the session to be able to go through all the questions you've submitted. For those of you who've submitted questions in advance, thank you for those. And we'll start off with a couple of those as we wait for the other questions to roll through. If you have any technical issues, for example, the audio is misbehaving, you can't see the slides, please use that same question button to ask questions, and our technical team behind the scenes will do their best to support you. Obviously, one of the questions we normally get is about access to the content. So after the presentation, you'll be sent an email asking about some post-event feedback. If you complete the feedback survey, you get access to the slides and the recording that way. And that's probably the easiest way to engage with the content afterwards on demand. With that recording, you could always show that to colleagues and stuff afterwards as well. The webinar itself is CPD accredited. So as part of doing that post-feedback survey, you'll also get access to a CPD certificate as well. And just to let you know that we run a host of events all throughout the year. I'm going to highlight some of those events at the end of the webinar. But if you want to see our fuller program of stuff, just check out that QR code on the screen. That is going to do it for our housekeeping. So what we're going to do is go straight into the content of the webinar. So I'm going to hand over to Emma Hooper, Head of Information Strategy at RLB Digital. Emma, as always, it's a pleasure to have you, and over to you.
Thanks, Dan. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Emma Hooper. I'm Head of Information Management Strategy at RLB Digital. I'm also Head of Projects for NEMA and Vice Chair of Building Smart UK and Ireland. I've been involved also with the Information Management Framework right from the very start, and was one of the original authors, and I'm also the technical author of PAS 1958. But for this session, I'm going to talk you through the Information Management Initiative. So, the challenge. As we're well aware, the built environment sector generates vast amounts of data, yet most of it goes unused, and this leads to lots of inefficiencies, increased costs and safety risks, but we also miss out on massive opportunities for innovation and to do good. And as the industry faces growing demands for sustainability, digital transformation and regulatory compliance, the need for better information management has never been more urgent. And these are some stats here with regards to information and data. And the one that always sticks out to me is the fact that poor data quality adds £2.5 billion a year across UK infrastructure projects. So these are significant sums of money. So if we could just actually focus on the information, then actually it does provide benefits. So in the past, we've had mandates. So we had the infamous BIM Level 2 mandate back in 2016, so that was 10 years ago now. And this was then restated within the TIP roadmap to 2030. However, there was a few problems with the mandate. One, it was never actually formally mandated. It only applied to centrally procured public sector projects, so it was very sort of narrow in its scope. It didn't cover all phases of the built and managed environment. The value and benefits weren't clearly articulated. It didn't help individual organisations or users, and much of the industry is still in the early phases of adoption. We have a vast range of maturity across the sector. So the Information Management Initiative was born, and this is a refresh with a different approach. So it doesn't just throw a mandate at the sector and says, hey, get on with it. It's about working with organisations, joining things up and removing complexity. So the Information Management Initiative is led by NEMA in partnership with the CLC, and it's a national programme designed to transform how the UK built environment sector manages information, and it builds upon the UK's leadership with regards to BIM and information management, and aims to embed structured, secure and interoperable data practices across the life cycle of built natural assets. And the life cycle part is really important. We're not just focusing on one stage, it is throughout whole life. So the Information Management Initiative is structured in accordance with this diagram. At the top, we have the steering group, which includes government and industry representation. Then we have the management group, a task group, which is supported by the IMI framework. So the IMI is made up of 4 main features. So the first is a call to action for all organisations. Then secondly, there's a sector-wide directive for organisations to assess maturity. Then there's an internal mandate or policy that each organisation sets based on their own maturity and ambition. And then finally, we have a standard information approach for organisations to unite around a common set of information foundations. So this is very much about working with organisations and giving them a connected set of foundations in which to work with. And this can be any organisation. It can be public or private. It can be small or large. In fact, any organisation that's involved in the built environment, from lawyers, regulators, insurers, land valuers to engineers, we all create, use and share information in relation to the whole life of built and managed assets. So organisations sign up because they recognise that information is a key business asset and it will benefit them, but also the fact that we need to unite around a common set of information foundations. And the IMI respects that all organisations are different and on their own journeys with regards to information management, and they might have their own perspective on information. So like I've said, it's not that blanket mandate or approach. We have to factor in the differences. Okay, so what's the IMI all about? So once an organisation has signed up, they're invited to take part in this 4-step process. So the first step is around onboarding. So this is briefing on the basics of information management. The second is around planning and mobilisation. So understanding where your organisation is in relation to the IMI sector-wide directive and setting a target of where you want to get to. And then 3 is around preparing that organisational mandate or policy. And then lastly, step 4 is around the implementation of that mandate or policy. And these 4 steps are they're represented by these 3 organisational projects, and I'm going to go through each of these projects in more detail now. So project 1. So this is the IMI briefing, and for this we've developed an onboarding briefing deck and video outlining 7 core sector-wide principles. So it's basically the what, why, when, where, when and who of information management, and it's designed to build awareness, align with key stakeholders and equip organisations with the insight needed to confidently embark on the information management journey. And then step 2, this is represented by project 2, and this is the maturity and benefits framework. So this is creating a tool, so a tool that builds upon the sector-wide directive and enables organisations to self-assess their current capability with regards to information management, identify targeted improvement actions, and develop robust evidence-based business cases. And in terms of where we are with this project, we actually have a proof of concept, and this is being tested currently through a ChatGPT interface. So you basically answer a set of questions and it produces a very high level business case that can then be used to open up early dialogue with senior stakeholders about an organisation's needs in terms of improving information management, and also the why. So, and the real value lies here in the fact that it can actually help assess maturity every year. So an organisation can start to see how it's improving. Like I said, this is in testing mode at the moment, and iterations will be released during 2026 as we start to receive more feedback. Then we have project 3, which is based on steps 3 and 4. So this is the mandate or the policy methodology. So this is about taking the sector-wide directive principles and turning them into something that actually works for an organisation. So it's a clear information management mandate or policy that gets prepared and embedded into everyday processes. And from there, it's rolled out consistently across projects and ways of working, supported by training, monitoring, and regular review. The aim is to make information management part of how an organisation operates, track the results, and keep improving, so it continues to deliver real value. And the mandate methodology draws from specific rules provided by the IMI framework, and this is what Dan's going to go through in a bit after me, so I'm not going to steal his thunder on this. So those are the organisational projects, what I've just been through, but we need something else. Organisations don't operate as silos. Organisations work with other organisations on projects in all different combinations. So we have to be able to share information and data. And the challenge isn't necessarily a lack of doing, it's a lack of coordination and a lack of alignment. So much money is wasted across organisations, projects, initiatives every day because they're all trying to solve the same problems, and all it does is spread the funding and resource out thinner and thinner, diluting impact. And this is actually starting to get out of hand. I hear of new initiatives, projects, working groups set up every day. It's about solving it once, solving it well, and making sure it fits into a bigger picture. So we've actually been working alongside UCL, and they've actually created an initiative called Seabeds, which is actually creating connections between all those different working groups, activities, initiatives, and actually developing a knowledge graph just to see visually how big this is all getting and who is doing what. So we're actually working alongside them, and we're going to be looking at how we make more use of this knowledge graph, because we think it's a wonderful resource for the sector. So in addition to the organisational projects, we also have technical projects, and they create a standard information approach which builds upon the existing IMI framework to establish those information management foundations across the entire sector. There is so much out there at the moment, and it's overwhelming with regards to information management. We have things like barcodes, identifiers, classifications, designation systems, breakdown structures, schemas, information requirements, purposes, data dictionaries, and then we have AI that we're putting on top. So we really need an implementation layer to bring it all together with practical tools to hide some of that complexity to form a standard information approach. So we started to do this last year with PAS 1958. So PAS 1958 actually brings together around 45 to 50 information management and data standards within the built environment, and starts to join them together to form one holistic framework, which starts to identify how all those standards connect by actually looking at concepts. And I was a technical author of this, and this was published back in March this year, and this is a standard is completely free as well. So if you go onto the BSI website and search PAS 1958, you can download it. So we've used PAS 1958 as the basis of the standard information approach. So it's split down into people, context, process, data, and technology, which are the 5 components listed within PAS 1958. So if we start at the top with the people side, we've got the organisational support. So this is taken care by those projects that I've just talked about. Then we have the context, which is the real life. which starts to inform information purpose, so why and how you're going to use information, which then identifies the information specifications, basically the what. Then that informs information production, so the creation of information. Now, if information specification provides the questions regards to information, then information sources, such as manufacturers, provide the answers because they provide the actual data that answers those questions. And it's really important that these are kept in sync with shared foundations of syntax and semantics. So we're all talking the same digital language. And then at the bottom, we have technology, which then plugs into this system. So I'm going to go through each of the projects which actually build the standard information approach. So we have 8 projects here at the moment, and I'm just going to go through each of these in a bit more detail. So the first project we have is the purpose methodology. So this is really focusing on the why in terms of information, why do you need information and how you're going to use it. So this is going to create a methodology to actually work through for organisations so that it can actually determine what information it is that they want. As a sector, we're not great at actually defining purpose at the moment. So this project is to help with that. Then we have the second project, which is around use cases. So what we're doing is creating sets of modular use cases, which you can start to bring together in different combinations to meet your own needs. And for this, we're starting with the first use case, which is based around insurance. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But we also have lots of other work within this area as well. So we're actually connecting in with Building Smart International and their asset operations handover project, which is currently in the early stages, which will actually start to define what that core use case is, and also modules in terms of maintenance and operations. So the idea really, I call it like pick and mix information requirements, so you can bring sets together to meet your needs. So you're not starting with a blank sheet of paper or a blank database. Then our third project is the information requirements library. So if we've got all these information requirements, we need somewhere to put them, and we need to be able to merge them, filter and sort them. So that's what the library is about, but also being able to export them in machine readable formats as well. Then we have project 4, which for me is probably the most important one. That's the taxonomy builder. In terms of the different domains across our sector, we all call things different things. And this is a massive problem when you're starting to digitise. So we really need to rethink this approach. In the past, we've done mapping in terms of mapping terms to other terms, but we want to really look at the science behind all this and really start to explore the opportunity that semantic modelling starts to bring us with regards to linking all these terms together. Then we have our 5th project, which is Model Sync L10. And this is a demonstrator project. If I get the slide back up. Okay. This is a demonstrator project which is really focusing on the asset information model and demonstrating what if it was object-based. So we're starting to really think about the actual data with regards to the asset information model. And this means it's actually much easier to update as trigger events happen on the actual physical asset. It's much easier to update granular information than it is, a 1,000-page PDF. Then we have project 6, which is schema alignment. So we have lots of schemas across the sector, schemas such as IFC, OSCAR, BRIC, the GIS standards as well. So there's not been any work at the moment which starts to look at all these schemas and bring them together, identifying where the overlaps are or where there's gaps, because not one schema can do everything. Then we have the 7th project, which is the technology code of practice. So this is really setting the rules for technology providers to start to plug into this standard information approach. We always follow the mantra where we put information first and then technology. And then lastly is the last project, and that's the manufacturers information collaboration. So this is really providing the bridge between the built environment IMI world and then what is currently happening within the manufacturers world. And again, lots is happening on that front, and I'll talk about it in a second. So I mentioned the insurance use case. This is Project Iris, and this is being led by Bowler and Stewart, and they've done something that is kind of impossible because they've actually started to speak to insurance underwriters, and they've actually created a set of information requirements for the insurance sector to actually calculate more accurate premiums. So this is currently well underway at the moment, and it's going to be really exciting to see where this one goes. Then we have Building Smart UK and Ireland, because Building Smart are actually part of NEMA. And all the projects that we're doing from a UK and Irish point of view is do actually contribute to the standard information approach and the IMI. And on here is the asset operations handover use case. We have IFCE, and we also have the work that's being done at an international level between the alignment of IFC and BRIC schemas. So this is how the projects overlay on the standard information approach. So they're not just random projects, they actually all work together and link up to create this holistic picture. Then we have the manufacturer's information hub. So I talked about the manufacturer's world in terms of things happening. Well, this is what's happening. So the manufacturer's world is, or manufacturer's information hub is basically bring together all the different sets of manufacturers' information, because they structure it in different ways, and normalizing it into one hub for then ingestion into the built environment. And we're kind of doing the same on the IMI front in terms of organization structuring information in different ways. So it just provides that consistency across the board. And we're working closely with the manufacturer's information hub. Then we have Project Indigo, which is really rethinking information management and asking the question, if we had a blank sheet of paper, how would we do information management today with all the technology and understanding? So this is really looking at semantic modelling and ontologies and higher order logic. And this is a really exciting R&D project which will go on for many years. We're also working very closely with the Digital Operations Working Group to emphasise the fact that this is all whole life, and the operational phase is just as important as any other phase during the life of an asset. And there's lots of good work happening here with regards to the ADS and also the creation of a playbook as well. So some of this work is underway, some of it's existing, and some of it, you know, we're going to actually need funding for. So it's about bringing all of this work together. But imagine all that money that gets spent sorting this out. You know, it could be sorted out as a fraction of the cost once and sorted out well. And for me, the time to take action is now. We have a lot of what's needed. We have growing appetite for this. And for me, it might be our last opportunity to remain in control of our own destiny as a sector and to establish the rules. So other sectors have looked at parts of this, such as finance and health, and we really need to do the same. So it's about bringing together the right people, the right knowledge, skills, ideas, and passion. You know, I see it as like assembling the Avengers. You know, it's really looking at how we then connect with other initiatives, whether it's the MIH, but also looking at actually where the built environment fits into an even bigger picture as well. So if your organisation would like to know more, or they would like to sign up, then please contact us at this email address and we will be in touch. And these are some of the organisations who have already signed up. And I just really wanted to end with saying thank you to all the volunteers. Everybody is amazing. You know, it doesn't take a village to do this. It takes an entire industry. And there's a lot of amazing people out there. There's so much passion and motivation to do this, but there's still loads to do. So if you have got any of those skills or knowledge or passion, please get in touch. And if you want to know more, also please follow the link to the IMI web pages on the NEMA website. And with that, I will hand you over to Dan. Thank you.
Brill. Thank you very much, Emma. And I can see the questions already coming in. So thank you very much. Please ensure to throw your questions in the question box. We'll have a look at them after my presentation. As Emma mentioned then, one of the aspects that the IMI is connected to is the IMI framework, which I will give you a high-level overview of. So at the start, so within the IMI framework, it is a coordinated activity between BSI and NEMA, and it is the overarching approach to information management using BIM here in the UK. The idea is that it's a hub, a central repository, a resource, the place you go if you want to find out the rules, the guidance, and any of the tools that help you do information management here. And primarily, we split those artifacts into three main sections. We've got the standards, including things like the ISO 19650 series. We have the guidance, which is a tome of knowledge produced by volunteer industry practitioners, all around explaining what's happened in the standards and providing some extra context. And then we've got additional resources, things like templates, graphics, and other bits and pieces as well. I can see helpfully links have been put in the chat, but if you do want to have a look at the IMI framework proper, you can just go to imiframework.org to be able to get access to all the links and resources that we have there. So thinking of each of these in part, we have two sets of standards on there, and you'll notice on my slide I use the word currently, and that's because the IMI framework itself is an evolving list of resources. Just the way that standards change, new guidance comes out, new technology evolves, the idea is that the framework stays up to date with best practice. So these things can shift and change. Primarily, you've got the things that most people are used to on there. All the parts of ISO 19650 are cited. So from part 1 on concepts to part 6 on health and safety, everything in between, as well as our national standard BS 8536, which is all about design for operability. So this idea of how you actually connect your design and construction teams with your operation and management teams and the process therein. So those are effectively the common parts of the framework, but we've added some additional bits and pieces. We did some engagement with the Institute of Workplace and Facility Management, the IWFM, and asked them what are some of the specific standards relating to facilities management. And they came up with additional ones that we've added onto the framework as well. So you can see on there, we've got ISO 41000 for FM systems, BS 8587 on facility information management, and BS 8544 on life cycle costing. What this means is that we have two lists in effect. We have design and construction list, which is more or less the 19650 series with 8536, minus part 3, as that's focused on operations. And then you have a operational and maintenance list, which is the standards that you can see on the screen, minus 19650 part 2, as that's more focused on design and construction. Bear in mind that the 19650 series is under revision, and currently part 3 is out for public consultation as well. So do have a look at that afterwards if you are interested. So there's an interesting list here, and the idea is that we're going to look to expand that list as things go forwards. So a small note is that we're going to probably look at manufacturers next. You saw some exciting work Emma talked around connecting to things like the Manufacturers Information Hub. So hopefully we might get an expanded list of standards on there, focusing on construction products and manufacturers, and then we might consider other personas afterwards as well. So if you have any ideas of who we should focus on, do let us know. Now, from a guidance point of view, as I mentioned, the guidance is volunteer developed, and there is like a host of, 30, 40, 50 more volunteers who have been a mix of writing, reading, reviewing, promoting guidance material that they've all done from a volunteer basis to develop this 3 point of use set of materials for people to use. The guidance itself includes recommendations, insights, and examples. So it helps build upon the existing kind of rules and the standards. You'll find that from a standards point of view, there are certain restrictions we have in the way that we have to write things. The guidance is freer in the sense that it can actually go deeper into provide anecdotes and better examples. So it's a brilliant resource to read alongside the main standards. Now, in this guidance, it's set out in a kind of hopefully a familiar and helpful way. We've got part 0, which is the case for information management. That one kind of sets out the context, as well as answering the question of why. Why should someone start taking information management more seriously? Part 0 is a great place to be able to look at that. Then we have guidance specifically relating to each part of the 19650 series. So you'll see guidance part 1 relates to 19650 part 1, etc., etc. In that sort of way as we go. And then we've got lettered guidance, which goes into specific topics. So those topics can be on tendering and procurement, can be on open BIM, and other bits and pieces as well. So deeper dives into specific subject areas. And there's a fair bit of exciting stuff that's been happening from a guidance point of view. The first is very recently we published guidance part 6 on health and safety. So working with the BIM for Health and Safety group, there's lots of really good material in there around supporting ISO 19650 part 6. You notice on the list there, I put 1 to 4 and 6. If you want guidance on part 5, you actually, if you go to our resources tab, you can see a link there out to the NPSA website. They have got specific guidance relating to security mindedness for digital engineering, which is effectively the guidance on part 5. So we signpost to that location for that content. And we are planning to do future work, one with the IWFM, to improve the guidance content relating to operations and facilities management. And we are poised to look at updating the guidance as and when the 19650 series gets updated as well. So do keep an eye on the guidance as we go. But as mentioned, due to it being volunteer-led and only so much resource hours being available, it may not be changed immediately. So please bear with us as we look to coordinate that work. And for example, one of the really clever things we have in the guidance is its AI search function. As part of that, you can actually ask conversational questions to the guidance, and you can start to pull answers from the content it's been trained on. You can see here, I've asked a question, where does security fit into information management? And it starts to tell you, 1, how important security is, but then 2, points to ISO 19650 part 5 as part of that solution. And it provides various links and sources at the bottom to help, which I couldn't quite fit on the screen. Likewise, I started to ask questions about how it relates to things like IFC. Let's just see if that load there is. So I said, I don't understand IFC, where should I start? And it started giving me a breakdown of some of the benefits and importance of IFC and how it fits together. And you can see there, as it starts to reference Building Smart, it starts to talk about what IFC is built for, and then how it starts to fit into the 19650 series. So if you are unsure where to start, maybe asking some questions to the search function in the guidance could be a great place to start. And then finally, we've got the resources. And what we've started to do is try to provide some structure to our resources. So in the first instance, what we have are kind of context-related resources, things that might help you understand the landscape a bit better. And 2 examples of those are PAS 1958, which tries to kind of outline a high-level schema for digital in the built environment, as well as our infographic looking at the various parts of 19650 and where various bodies or organizations might relate. We then have resources that support the process. So if you're interested in working on public sector projects and in satisfying requirements around soft landings, there's guidance there, as well as links to third-party content from BISRIA, which was a recommendation from the facility management team to support facility managers in doing their information management activities. We have some data resources, links out to things like the IFC documentation on the Building Smart International website, as well as links to the Building Smart UK page on the NEMA site, where you can find information and resources out about COBE, including downloading templates and other bits and pieces too. From a technology resource, we've got things like the GIGS Interoperability Code of Practice, a document all about how suppliers of technology can look to make their solutions more interoperable. And then to tie that around, then we've got some resources on from the people side, where we've got things like a template for the assignment of responsibilities, similar to what's in Annex A of ISO 19650 Part 2, but as a usable template. So you can see the sort of things that we've got available to you in the system. And as always, we are more than happy to look at including any additional bits and pieces as well. So if you do find resources that you think are useful, please do let us know. We can look to get them added. And as we start to pull these things together. So quick summary from me, and then we'll jump into some of the Q&A. Is that the Information Management Initiative, as Emma talked about, is this process to support organizations to establish their own information management mandate. The idea is that we're giving people the agency to look after their own mandates to support themselves in realizing what good information management looks like for them. To support the Information Management Initiative, there are various things that are happening. You've seen from Emma's presentation that NEMA are looking at a wealth of projects, looking at various problem statements relating to information management to try and smooth out the transition and support people as they go on this journey. And we as BSI, alongside NEMA, oversee the IMI framework, which hosts these standards, guidance and resources, which constitute the UK's approach to information management. If you want to learn more about the IMI, I suggest you go to wearenema.im/IMI. And if you want to learn more about the framework, you can go to imiframework.org. And I think that is more or less going to take me through the content I had there. So why don't we look at moving into the Q&A session. So I think I've got one last slide. There it is. So we'll start to come in. So I'll invite Emma to come back. There you are. Thank you very much for coming back. And when we get into some of the questions that we've received, thankfully we get a whole bunch I can see here that's coming through on the chat. But I think it's only fair that we maybe ask one of the ones that came in advance first to warm everyone up. So Emma, if you don't mind, we had a question through which was, in effect, what should an organization do with no prior experience if they wanted to get started with information management?
So I think the first thing is an organisation will have experience because every organisation uses and creates information. So they will have some experience. It's not a completely new thing. But if they do want to get into the more official information management way of working, then I'd definitely point out the information management framework. So everything you've talked about, Dan, in terms of the guidance, the resources and the standards, particularly looking at the standards in terms of what's relevant, obviously starting with ISO 19650, but also BS 8536. And for me personally, when I first read that, and that was well over 10 years ago now when it first came out, but for me that gave me the penny drop moment as to what information management actually was. So I always tell people to definitely go and read that standard. But as well as the information management framework, there's also obviously PAS 1958 as well, because that brings together lots of standards and it will identify and signpost where you need to maybe look at in more detail. Then we've got Building Smart as well. So if you're really more interested in the data side and how information is structured and connected, the Building Smart websites, both UK and Ireland, and also the international website has resources. We also have monthly community calls from a Building Smart UK and Ireland perspective as well, which are open forums for people to discuss implementation or ideas around open standards such as IFC. Then we also have NEMA as well. So there is individual NEMA membership at the moment. And what we're looking at doing with that is actually creating a forum, so a safe space for people to discuss and learn from each other. And then finally, we've got the IMI as well. So the organisational 4 steps, that's to help people on their information management journey, whether they've been doing this for years or whether they are new to it as well. So there is lots of resources out there, actually most that are free, apart from standards. And yeah, just go on there and just take a look.
No, brilliant. Thank you. And so I think, yeah, I think go into the, as you say, go into those resources we talked about first, and just having a look sounds like a great idea. If we go to some of the live questions that we've had, I'll maybe start with Beth first. She put a couple in, so I'll loop them together. In theory, I assume she doesn't mind. Questions about linking with some other organizations, I think, have been triggered by talking about the Manufacturers Information Hub. So one question is there any collaboration with the CCPI? And then the other is, what about something like Data Yard? So I'll preface that at least I know from a BSI side that we've had conversations with Amanda at CCPI, and I started conversations with guys at the Data Yard in coming to present to some of our committees. From a NEMA side, I'm obviously not too au fait what happened in the background there, but there were a series of calls recently around manufactured information that NEMA were bringing a lot of people together, if I remember right, Emma. So I don't know if there's anything you can say either there on that activity or anything you know about talking with people like Data Yard and CCPI.
Yeah, so I have had a conversation with Data Yard. I mean, really, that's kind of what the Manufacturers Information Hub side is dealing with. So that's bringing all that side together. Obviously, then we're then connecting to the Manufacturers Information Hub. In terms of CCPNI, we haven't had a direct conversation in regards to the Information Management Initiative with them yet, but happy to have a conversation.
No, brilliant. Thank you. Vinaf has asked specifically about Dubai, but questions about what is the reach of, I guess, NEMA in that way of, does it have any kind of international chapters? What might be a slightly broader question I'll give there.
So in terms of NEMA, we don't have chapters. It's not like Building Smart. I mean, Building Smart do have a UAE chapter, so you can get involved with that. We do work globally as well, because we're actually working with a Dubai-based company called ALEC. We have Andy Bootle over in Dubai, and he's actually testing a lot of the IMI organisational steps for us at the moment. And there's actually going to be a piece on that being published by NEMA very soon. So yes, again, we're happy to collaborate. We're not just closed in terms of the UK, and we are well aware that a lot of other countries look at what we're doing as well.
No, that's true. I guess it follows on. There's a question here from David about applying it in different countries. And I guess one of the interesting points will be, one is that I know that the guidance team have had requests for translation into different languages. So there's been international interest there. And I guess part of that is the fact that whilst we have got some British standards cited in it, it's largely built around the international standards for the ISO 19650 series, which means countries that are looking at following that same ISO standard means there should be good levels of alignment. So I think they've been looking at things like the guidance content and other NEMA projects and seeing good transferability. So I think is it Hong Kong, Singapore? There's been a bunch of people who have had interest in some of the translations. So there's some good stuff that's been happening over there too. One of the questions we got in advance, Emma, was around the how important tools and software are. So I think there's no escaping that as much as we might talk about information management being a process, which it is, that ultimately we are handling digital stuff in a digital space, and you might need some sort of software or technology to do it. So surely it's one, quite important. I guess the question is, how does it relate to any form of maturity or organizational progression, or how it fits into the mandate process? Anything you can elaborate on there?
So yeah, information management does include process, but it also includes data the data component as well, which people tend to miss out, which is how data is connected, how it's structured, how it's ordered, and that's really the bit that technology interfaces with. And we always do say that we try and consider information holistically and independently of technology, and then get technology to plug in, because really what we've seen over the past 20, 30 years is that we've been very much led by the technology companies, and obviously that's kind of a very niche set of use cases, whereas we need to connect much wider. So we always start with the information, but obviously technology is very important to everything that we do, because we can't do it without technology. So for me, it's really thinking about basics of information in terms of what information you use and what information you create. Make sure that gets all mapped out, and how you want to work and everything, then bring technology in, so then it actually meets your needs, and you're not, it's not like a square peg and a round hole type thing that we've been used to for so many years. So it's really looking at technology based upon your own needs.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
And also with regards to the maturity part of the question, sorry, Dan, I think the maturity part of it really does kind of stem really as to how we define what an information model is. And there's lots of different debates and different opinions on this at the moment, but I actually see information models being on like a maturity spectrum. So we start with disconnected information, pretty much what we have now. We start to then move to information that's connected through shared objects and shared names. We start to then move to more sort of data modeling, where data is actually properly connected through explicit relationships. And then finally, we move to the other end, where we're not there at all at the moment, where we start to really look at the relationships through things like knowledge graphs. So yeah, for me, it's that kind of maturity. And that's where it's kind of based really within that information model type layer.
No, really interesting. Thank you. Question here from Thomas is about the level of government engagement with things like the IMI and the IMIF. So maybe I'll start, then maybe you can fill any of the gaps in. Just one, give you a break from answering all my questions. And I think the answer is multifaceted in that sort of way. So we have some people from government departments actually technically contributing. So they have actually contributed to the guidance. They've sat on sort of the technical steering groups that have been developing some of the content. So there have been HSE colleagues who've worked on the guidance for the health and safety bits and pieces for part 6, as an example of one of those. There's been engagement with government departments, people like MHCLG on their recent white papers, and some of the specific engagement there around manufacturers information. People from the Department of Trade and others have sat on, I think, sit on the IMI steering groups and those sorts of bits of it, and have always been advocates for this sort of approach. I think Fergus, as an example, has always been quite an advocate for what's been happening and how we've been doing what was the original BIM level 2 mandate, then what we have now is the kind of the IMI in that sort of sense. So there is a multifaceted, multi-sort of level way that government and devolved governments have been engaging with the IMI. Does that roughly sum it up, Emma?
Yeah, I mean, government departments were part of the initial discussions before the IMI was even a thing. They, helped kind of set initial kind of ideas around it. We've actually got government departments actually signing up to it now, and really eager to go through those 4 steps in terms of the organisational side. And then we've also got some people from government departments actually volunteering their time to help with the projects as well.
No, brilliant. Conscious of time, so we'll only do a couple more questions. So if you do have a burning thought, make sure you huck it in the chat. An interesting one here I've had through is about, I think in essence, it's asking the question of how to support the guidance. But it talks about, will the IMI capture real implementation feedback from small businesses, design consultancies, so that future guidance can reflect practical project level challenges? I guess that the point I probably make there is, one is, I think it already does to an extent. If I think of the people who've been involved in creating the IMI and writing the guidance content, they are real people, as silly as it sounds, they're real people in doing work who work on real projects. They are people whose day job is, being project managers, architectural technologists, design consultants, IM professionals on live active working projects. It's not just someone like me who's a bit more theoretical. They are people who get paid to do these things on real jobs. So I think that feedback exists. If the question is, how do you as an individual feed in? I know some people have asked about how they might contribute. I think the easiest one might be if you go to the IMI or the NEMA website, there's the option to become a NEMA member, which I think is probably a good way to get access to some of the content. And I think there's a kind of, through that sort of avenue, asking about supporting things like the guidance and becoming a volunteer, I think is probably the most helpful way of getting your own feedback in, unless you're going to say otherwise, Emma.
No, it's just volunteering. We always need new people coming in to help with this, especially with the updates that are going to happen over the next few years as well.
Yeah, and I think I'll point out that whilst obviously it's being managed from a volunteer point of view, I think it's trying to be as open as possible and that anyone can be involved and anyone can contribute. But there's just been the problem of the fact that people are doing it besides their day jobs in a way. What it means is that maybe everything isn't answered as quickly or things can be missed. But the intention is that if someone is keen and wants to help out, I think we want to take advantage of that generosity and have them support. So by all means, please get in contact and we can look to implement additional feedback in that sort of way. So there's a question here from Craig around, I won't name people specifically, but questions like partnerships with organizations, particularly software vendors, perhaps well-known software vendors who produce architectural softwares and other bits and pieces is the example. But does NEMA have plans to partner with those sorts of organizations?
So we obviously have the technology code of practice, and what we are exploring at the moment is creating an IM4 technology group so that we can actually engage with all the technology companies. It doesn't necessarily matter if they're a patron of NEMA or not, so it is actually much more inclusive of technology providers and developers, and we do want to bring everyone along on the journey with us, and we would like them to help us update that technology code of practice. So yeah, there's definitely a part to play there.
Brilliant. So it may be less partnering with a specific vendor, but more creating a fora to engage with any vendors who are interested. So it's more of an open playing field sort of scenario. Perfect.
We want to remain balanced.
No, thank you, Emma. I still see some more questions coming in, but I think we're probably going to have to leave the questions there, mostly if we're going to be able to finish on time and everything else. So what I'll do is I'll say thank you very much, Emma, for joining us. You can run away and hide now. I think I'll just do some closing up as we sort of finish off for today. So the first thing I'm going to do is say thank you very much. One, to Emma, and two, to all of you who have, one, contributed and also provided lots of really interesting questions for us to consider. Thank you for that. Anything we didn't get answered, we will have a look at afterwards, and if we're able to follow up, we will. So I just want to say that I think that's quite an interesting session, and I hope that at the very least at the end of it, the main takeaway that you have is to go to the IMI, sort of the NEMA website and the IMI framework, and have a look at the content that we have there. I have accidentally, there we are, moved my screen too far forward. There it is. So what we'll do is just go through a few bits and pieces. One is that final reminder that if you do want to contribute and provide feedback, one of the most immediate places you can do that is by going to our standards development portal and feeding back on the proposed revisions to ISO 19650 Part 3. So by all means, please go there and provide your views is the first thing. The second is, as I mentioned at the start of the webinar, we of course have a myriad of different events and presentations that we have as part of our series going forwards. So if you're interested in any of these, please do look at the links and get involved with them, or share them with colleagues. I won't go through everything, but it's interesting ones there you can see as of note. we've got some events for our Young Professionals Network happening on the 30th of July. So if you have colleagues who might be interested in standards or interested in standardization going forwards but don't know where to start, our Young Professionals Network is a great place for them to meet like-minded young professionals, as well as speak to people like ourselves around how the process and everything works and get a bit of the lay of the land. So that's a brilliant event you can see there. Also, most of you may be aware that there's an awful lot of updates happening on the Eurocode side as we're gearing up for the second generation of the Eurocodes. So there's events you can see in September all about the second generation. So do keep an eye on those, but you can go to our BSI events calendar to get a full list of everything that you are interested in. So please do have a look at those, and I look forward to seeing you at a future event of ours. I believe then, if I just make sure, double check, I think that is everything. So if my next slide is going to be our spinning logo, I will leave us there. It's all been a bit slow on me. There it is. It's our little spinning logo, which means that we've come to the very end of the presentation. Thank you so much for listening, and hope you guys have a great rest of the day and see you at a future event soon. Thank you.